We're live. All right. So, welcome to another week of the Ubuntu Community Team Q&A. I'm David Planella. I manage the community team at Canonical, and with me we've got another community manager, Michael Hall, who you will know from previous Q&As as well. For those of you who are joining for the first time, this is a session, 1 hour session essentially, where you get to ask any questions that you want about Ubuntu, open source in general, and so on. Again, if you got any questions, you'll see on the ubuntuonair.com page there's a widget where you can log into IRC. Actually no login required, but you can just get into IRC, and if you prepare your questions with the word question, then it will be easier for us to see and to pick them up. Other than that, feel free to ask anything other than just technical questions. There are other venues that are better for answering those, such as Ask Ubuntu, the Ubuntu forums, or the mailing list. And having said all the logistics, I think that was pretty much it in terms of the intro, right, Mike?
Yeah, that's the typical intro. Do we have any updates this week?
We've got some updates from the Core Ops team, actually. Let me check. So Alan Pope, who was working together with the team of Core Ops developers, has just sent us some updates of what was going on in the Core Ops world this week. The Ubuntu Core Ops project is essentially the oops, sorry, let me just update my lower third. All right, so the Ubuntu Core Ops project is comprised of all of the apps that are installed, or many of the apps that are installed by default on the phone. This means apps such as Calendar, Calculator, Reminders, which is the Evernote client, Clock, and some other few. They have been implemented by community contributors almost exclusively, and generally we tend to show what's been going on every week on this call. So quite quickly, so that we can start with the first questions, which I see already on Ubuntu on Air. Here's what's been happening this week on the Core Ops world. So for those of you who've got a phone, you can go to the System Settings app and see the updates, and you will there find an update of the Music app. Essentially, there were some bug fixes, so no features coming in. If you're interested in the details for those bug fixes, feel free to ping us on Ubuntu on Air, or even better on Ubuntu-app-devel. That's the channel where all the Core Ops developers hang out. Then the Reminders app went through QA. Essentially, we're trying to get the Reminders app installed by default on the phone, and this has to be through some strict QA processes to make sure that the app works well for all users. So the update that we're trying to do this week was backed out because of some QA problems, which we are trying to fix. And Poppy mentioned that I should say that this is good, actually, because it shows how our QA process works. Another nice app that is worth keeping an eye on is the Doc Viewer app. It's getting more and more features, and it's also another one that we're trying to get. Sorry, I just saw one comment on Ubuntu. Okay, I'll remember.
Spoiler: David is the Ubuntu Borat.
All right. So next Q&A comes with a mustache and some sunglasses. All right. So yeah, finally, one of the more interesting stuff. The log viewer app is getting some improvements with full screen viewing of PDFs, and it will get an update on the store very soon with this new feature. And without further ado, shall we see which questions we've got so far?
Yep. See, we wanted to go back and grab Constantine's question from before the broadcast. So he asked,
Yeah.
where is Jono buried? And will his ghost be able to play the guitar in Ubuntu on Air ever again? So Jono is buried in X Prize land now. I thought everybody knew this, but in case anyone's not sure, Jono left Canonical middle of last year to join the X Prize Foundation, where he is trying to make the world a better place by doing awesome things without us. So if you want to hear his guitar, you're going to have to go watch one of his QAs that he does with them. Unfortunately, none of the rest of us play guitar, so you're out of luck as far as music goes on these. Terribly sorry about that.
Yes. You should be happy that we're not playing guitar for you guys. So
I was going to say, one of us could get a guitar and we can just make a lot of noise with it.
All right. All right.
It's almost like metal.
Definitely. Yeah. Okay. So I think we might want to spare that to our listeners. All right. Next question. Just coming, Constantine again. Does any of the community QA team listen to badvoltage.org? I don't listen to that. I'll talk for me personally. I've listened to some of the podcasts. I don't listen to each one of them, but they're really good actually, and you should check out also the videos at Scale where they did their Bad Voltage live. That was also very cool. But yeah,
I was actually at the Bad Voltage live, sitting in the audience, right in front of Brian Lunduke. And I listen to them occasionally. I've got them. So we've got this really nice podcasting app. I don't know if you can see it on my camera. It's called Podbird, and it is very nice. Michael Sheldon wrote it, and Nicholas has been helping him a lot improving that. So it's quite nice. I listen to it whenever I'm out and about. I plug my phone into my car radio, and that's really nice to use. But yeah, I also don't follow every episode.
All right. Next one.
I think it's from System B, yeah. Who his namesake kind of answers his own question. What's new in Ubuntu 15.04? And I think one of the biggest updates is that it is using systemd now.
There you go.
I know there's been some other updates and bug fixes and the usual, updates to new packages. I haven't been following it along too much. I'm actually still on 14.10. I haven't upgraded yet, which is unusual for me. Usually I upgrade 3 months into the cycle. So yeah. I'm a bit behind. I need to go and upgrade.
Yeah, I'm on. On this cycle, I myself also, for some reason, I think it's because we've been so much focused on the phone lately. I am on 15.04 right now, but it took me a while also to update. I tend to do as Mike, but this time it took me a while. For me, other than the bug when we did the upgrade to systemd, 15.04 has been working very well for me. I haven't been following the development of the desktop that closely this cycle, but this is something that is going to change as the desktop and converging story are going to become more and more important in the next release.
Yeah, my need to have the latest and greatest software has been fulfilled by the phone lately. I recently flashed to the developer post, which are the daily untested builds. So I get my bleeding edge fix through that. So I haven't felt the need to upgrade my desktop just yet. All right. System B again asks, why is Dell selling the XPS 13 with Ubuntu 14.04 and not 14.04.2? Oh, 14.04.1, I guess they're using.
Yeah, I mean, I would think. I mean, I'm just guessing here, so take with this with a pinch of salt. I mean, when OEMs preload to Ubuntu, it is something. I mean, there's a delay between them getting the image and the hardware going to market. So I'm just guessing that at the time the Dells were preloaded with 14.04.1. Obviously, what I'm trying to say is that at the time there wasn't .2 yet. But I'm just I'm pretty sure that you can easily update to 0.2.
Yeah, there's always going to be some lead time between when we release something like that and when the OEMs pick it up, because it's got to go through both their review and QA process, and also just get into the logistics line of things before it starts actually landing on laptops. So I would imagine it'll eventually be 14.04.2. It's just going to take a little while. I'm good, thank you.
So next one, we've got Nightmare is asking, what stand is Canonical taking about all non-canonical endorsed hardware being sold, i.e. Cube, UT, Tab, etc.? I mean, in terms of stands, if generally we work with partners on devices that are pre-installed with Ubuntu and we're open about it once we've reached an agreement. In terms of Cube, I'm not very familiar with it. In terms of UT Tab, I'm not sure if the project is actually taking off right now, if I remember correctly. But generally, when there's a device that's being pre-installed with Ubuntu, there generally talks with Canonical support.
And I know one of the big concerns with things like that is just making sure that they're complying with our trademark policy, so that when they say this comes with Ubuntu, people actually know what they're getting, and it's not modified or broken or stuff like that. As far as people actually selling hardware with Ubuntu, we're always happy for that.
All right. So next one is from Link. Are there any plans for the Ubuntu phone to have some more mainstream apps like Skype or WhatsApp? Definitely. We even have some mainstream apps. I was mentioning earlier on the reminders, the Evernote client. But you have to think as well that we are a relatively young platform, and for some of these big names, it takes some time to build trust or to build some momentum enough in terms of users. We're in talks with the names that you're mentioning here. For example, Skype and WhatsApp. For these two particular ones, what makes it a bit difficult is that WhatsApp, for example, have got a really strong hold on clients. Essentially, there are no official WhatsApp third-party clients. So this is something that we've been asked quite a lot. As the phone becomes more popular, I think it will be much easier to have these conversations and to have more of these mainstream apps landing on the phone.
And remember, the two that you mentioned specifically are owned by Microsoft and Facebook, respectively. So in order to get such big companies to move on a port, we really have to give them a financial justification for that. There's nobody in Microsoft who's saying, hey, let's go out and support Ubuntu phones. That would be fun. So we have to give them a really good justification for that. But we are working on it, and as David mentioned, we've got this Evernote client, which even though it's not branded as Evernote, it's branded as Reminders. We did work closely with them to make sure that it had the features that they were looking for in a native client. It was using their API properly. So they were heavily involved in that, even if it's not Evernote branded.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, Nixie is asking, is Canonical going to help the big companies with making better GPU drivers? It seems like they can use some help, ... AMD. So I know we have been in talks with AMD and NVIDIA and Intel around driver development and native mirror support. So we are definitely working with them on that. I don't have the details about what that all involves. But as far as I know, as long as they support the EGL interface and OpenGL, that it'll all just work with Mir and just work with Wayland.
All right. And before we jump on that one, Link is saying, thanks a lot for the response. Well, thanks a lot for asking and joining us today. Okay. So Nightmare is asking, Mr. Shuttleworth hinted at a bunch of vendors who are waiting to launch Ubuntu devices. Are you able to expand on this? I think there's someone who watched the MWC interview to Mark.
So we can expand on this to say that, yes, there are a bunch of vendors who are waiting to launch Ubuntu devices.
Exactly, yeah.
We cannot name names at this point, no.
Yeah, exactly. I've got nothing to add to what Mike just said.
Yeah. So basically, that will be announced when the ink is dry, and until then, nobody on either side is going to talk about that. It's just the nature of business. Nothing's done until it's done.
All right. So Nightmare is asking again: is Upstart Systemd used on the phone? As far as I know, the phone that's on the market right now, the BQ phones, are still using Upstart because they are based on 1410. But we're looking at moving to Vivid, which already has systemd. So essentially, if I'm not mistaken, then when we do the migration to Vivid on the phone as well, the phone will get systemd.
I think there's still some Upstart being used in Unity 8, even on Vivid images. And I don't know when that's going to switch over. So we used Upstart for both the system init and the session init. So when you launch apps on the Ubuntu phone, it's actually running through Upstart so that Upstart can track the processes and kill them if it needs to free up memory or restart them if they've been killed. So there's still work to be done there to move over to systemd. I don't know if that's going to happen in 1504 on the devices or not. I know there has already been a lot of work, though. For instance, the tool that actually launches the apps used to be Upstart App Launch, and it's been converted now to Ubuntu App Launch so that it can abstract away that tie-in to Upstart and make the switch to systemd easier. So it is coming, just no guarantees that it's going to be in 1504.
Cool. All right, so we've got another question from Nightmare, who's rocking the Q&A today. When will 1404 be getting the backport of new features found in 1504? Unfortunately, I think I'll have to answer this one as never. The reason being is because, first of all, 1404 is an LTS, which are the stable, rock-solid releases. But in any case, we've got stable release upgrades policy in all of our Ubuntu releases, whereby stable releases only get security bug fixes. So essentially, what I would recommend if you want to stay on LTSs would be to wait until 1604 to get the latest and greatest, essentially.
Now, there is an exception to that for LTS. You will continue to get new kernels,
Oh yeah.
which means you get driver updates, and you'll also get updates to the graphics stack. So you'll get new Xorg and Xorg drivers to improve your graphics experience. But that's the exception. For the most part, if it's not in there, it's not going to get backported.
All right. Okay, then there's another actually very interesting question from Nightmare again. Once convergence is in full effect, will the default apps found on phone be the same across all devices? I think there's different ways of answering this one. I mean, you have to think that we've got what we call the developer image, which is essentially what we publish every day or every second day, depending on QA, and that is public. You can install that on a Nexus 4, which is for example, which is one of the reference hardware devices, and there that is the canonical image. I mean, and not canonical as the company. So you get the default apps in there, and they will be the same across a lot of devices that use that developer image. However, there are images that are customized for each different manufacturer. So, for example, the BQ phone has got a different set of default apps as there are on the default image. Also, it has some extra scopes to add extra value to the manufacturer that are not present or are not pre-installed on the developer image. So I'm hoping that answers the question.
Yeah, I think that to kind of summarize what David just said, they're not going to be the same across all the different installable images. So your Nexus 4 image is not going to have the same apps as your desktop image, at least not anytime in the foreseeable future. But if you have a converged device, then yes, you're going to have the same apps, regardless of whether you're using it as a phone or a desktop.
Cool. Yeah, that's a good point. I'd forgotten about the convergence part on the desktop side. Yeah. Okay. So we've got a very long question and feedback from Konstantin. Let me try to read it all. So during episode 38 of Bad Voltage, sorry to drone on, there was a Houston, we have a problem dichotomy where you can't actually find the developer that you want to develop Ubuntu software for you, even if you have the Bitcoins. My feedback is, should Canonical hear the voices of those bounty sources and publish a policy as to I'm not sure I quite understand the last bit. So, should Canonical hear the voices of those of bounty source and publish a policy as to are the two processes in synergy towards the same aim?
So, if I understand correctly, and I'm not entirely sure that I do, he's asking if Canonical should do something to promote independent developers fixing bugs for pay. Something along the lines of bounty source.
Right.
And if that's the case, I'm going to say no. And here's why. And we had this discussion in comments on my blog after this episode also. I don't think the user community is ready yet to pay a going rate to get these fixed. There's a perception that you should pay your share, which when it's open source is 1 part in thousands or millions depending on how many users, which isn't going to be enough to actually compensate somebody to do the work. So until our user community and culture changes to where people are willing to put up the money for all of the user community to benefit, then that's just not going to work. And you see that with stuff like bounty sources. People will say, hey, this is a fix that's going to take a few days of your time. I'm willing to pay you $20 for it. Nobody's going to work for $20 a day and give you decent code out of that. So I don't think there's anything for Canonical to do. I don't think there's really anything anybody can do yet at this point to make that a success. And yes, that is the problem that that Stuart was pointing out. That because there's not enough of this, there's no website that actually makes it happen. So there's nowhere for somebody to go and say, okay, I want to pay an actual going rate. I want to pay for the entire community's share to get this fixed. There's no one website for that. There are companies like Collabra that do this for, that's their bread and butter, is they get people to do this. But they are still the exception, and I think they're going to remain the exception until our community changes in what we're willing to pay for. But that's my opinion. David, do you have a different opinion on that?
I'm not very familiar, to be honest. I'm not very familiar with bounty source. I mean, I think it has been proved that the Linux community is willing, and as I'll say Linux, not just Ubuntu, is willing to pay for software. We've seen that in games. Whether we change to that model, whether it would be easy to change to that model where you actually pay for features, I don't know. I'm a bit skeptical. I wouldn't say at this point that I share your opinion, simply because that I'm not familiar enough with bounty source, but yeah, I'm a bit skeptical as well.
So Constantine, I hope that answered what you were asking. If not, please repost and try and clarify what you were asking for.
Yeah, exactly. I think the point there was more to have a bit of a discussion about it. So I hope that at least as our personal opinions help a bit on that. But yeah, I mean, if this is something that you want to contribute to as in a discussion, there's also other channels that you can use for starting a discussion. It might be a good idea to, if you think it's worth it, to talk about it during the next Ubuntu Online Summit. Which is something that I wanted to mention on the Q&A as well. We're just setting up the logistics, and essentially the next Ubuntu Online Summit is starting in one month actually, from the 5th to the 7th of May.
And we're 1 month away already.
Yeah.
I thought we were ahead on the planning on this one, but it's snuck up on us. I've got to get back on that.
Yeah. All right. So next question from Chloe Wolfigal. Will the Unity 8 desktop require click packages, or will it work with them? That is an excellent question. This is something that we're trying to figure out right now. Essentially, the model, the conversion model will be to have secure apps that use the app isolation that we use on the phone as well. And this, in terms of the technology for packaging, that means click rather than deb. However, we're also aware that there are applications that will be challenging to migrate to click, and we might need another solution. This is still being discussed. I think it won't be, at least on the first implementation, it won't be a black or white solution. But yeah, Mike is more of an expert on this, so yeah, I'll give you the word.
There's some confusion around this that I've seen quite a bit. So Unity 8 doesn't care. Unity 8 will work with click packages. It'll work with deb packages. In fact, some of the apps on the phone are installed from deb packages into the system images and not from clicks. So I think system settings is one of those. What is going to matter about whether or not you can use debs is the image-based updates. So on the phone, in order to give diffs of the installed image and make updates easier and more reliable, that system takes over managing the OS install. And what that means is that you can't have apt also managing the OS install, because you only want one system that's tracking and controlling those files. If you have two, they're going to conflict and bad things are going to happen. So the state we're at now And what we're trying to figure out with both the engineers and the wider community is whether or not this image-based update would work for desktop systems, and how that would work with desktop systems. And that's still being worked out. There's no answer to that yet. But that will determine whether or not you're going to be using apps on the desktop to install things, or if we're going to try and move everything, all the apps that are currently in the archives, into click packages and make them installable that way. So that's kind of up in the air, but it has nothing to do with Unity 8. We can technically land Unity 8 on the desktop by default, and still use deb packages. So I hope that clears that up a little bit. All right, the next one was from Chloe again. Are there any plans to get remote controllers working on the phone? At some point, would I be able to sync my PS4 controller with the Ubuntu phone and play some Sonic 3 on my Ubuntu phone? Can you do that with desktop Ubuntu right now? I'm not sure what technology they use to sync, if it's Bluetooth or what.
I have no idea. I mean, I know that there was an app at some point being developed to use Ubuntu as a remote, but not for gaming, rather as for remote control of a TV. But again, I'm not familiar either with the technology for syncing.
Yeah, and I've seen people do this with a Wiimote on the desktop.
Right.
So I think in principle, if it's possible to do with desktop Ubuntu, it'll be possible to do with phone Ubuntu.
Yeah, it might require some digging. I mean, what you might want to do is to ask on Ubuntu-app-devel, and perhaps there's someone there that can help you.
Now, one thing that will be different, at least for now, is Mir and Mir's input methods. So a lot of the stuff right now probably works with Xorg, but that's not going to work with Mir. It will hopefully work with libinput, which is the generic input management library that's being developed for Wayland, and also we're planning on using with Mir. So if it doesn't work right now, it may work in the future if it gets support from libinput. All right. The next question is from Nightmare. Is it possible to get Ethernet working on the tablet through the use of a USB adapter? I don't know.
I don't know either, to be honest. I don't know. I'm just trying to think of the best person to ask, whether it would be someone from the desktop team or someone from the. I don't know.
It may depend on the tablet too, and the actual hardware support, and what kind of USB connector it is, whether it's a host or a device port.
Yeah.
Like, I know for the Nexus 7, at least the old Nexus 7, I was able to plug in on-the-go cable and get keyboard and mouse working that way. So in theory, you might be able to get a USB Ethernet adapter with that, but I don't know if the same would work on, say, the Nexus 4.
Right. Okay, so yeah, I mean, we'll leave it at this. Again, you might want to ask perhaps on Ubuntu-touch on that IRC channel. Perhaps someone can help you more on this one. Or we can also ask on askubuntu.com. That might be also a good place to do that. All right, so we've got another question from Nothing Much. Aren't smart TVs not very useful because of the use of cable boxes? Most of the time when smart TVs are used, they almost always have cable boxes, and their features are almost never used. Would Ubuntu or any other TV OS be practical at all? I cannot talk about other OSs in general. I'm not familiar with their TV offerings. With Ubuntu, in terms of, yeah, so I guess the question is more aimed at users rather than device manufacturers. It depends. I mean, if you see the potential of what you can do with the phone and coupling it with the TV, I think there's still advantage in using Ubuntu because of the way of interacting with the OS. In terms of features themselves, again, I'm not very familiar with TVs. Still, I really have liked to see a Ubuntu powered TV in the market at some point.
So it is an interesting observation. I don't know if this is a U.S. thing or if this is a global phenomenon, but at least here in the U.S., the cable boxes really are a marketing advantage and a business advantage for the cable companies. So they really seem to want to keep control of that. I think there's an actual standard for data going across the wire to these boxes that was meant to enable generic DVR boxes and cable TV boxes or building it into the TV itself. But I don't know if any of them are actually using that. So the companies, they use these cable boxes to tie you into their service or to differentiate their service from somebody else's. You see that in commercials for Bright House or Verizon or DirecTV, where they talk about the features of their box over somebody else's box, and that would go away if they depended on the TV itself. Now, for Ubuntu for TVs, one advantage that they might have in that area, and what we see on the phone now, is the ability to customize them using scopes. So it could be that instead of providing their own cable box to differentiate service from somebody else, the cable companies could provide scopes that only work if you're a subscriber for them. So they can say, okay, if you've got an Ubuntu TV and you subscribe with Bright House, you can install the Bright House scheduling scope and you get all of the DVR functionality through that. And that still lets them brand it and differentiate it from Verizon or Comcast or anybody else. I don't think that's been worked out yet. You can kind of watch the smart TV market trying to find something that works. And what you mentioned is something I haven't really thought too much about, is that they all are kind of hampered at the moment by these cable boxes and the fact that the cable companies want that to be your end user experience and not what the TV itself provides. So I think it's going to have to wait and see what actually wins out. It could be that somebody like Google or Apple comes out with a product that's good enough that they can force cable companies. And that's one of the things that iPhone did, was they came and they broke the control that the carriers had on things like your voicemail or delivering music to your phone. So it might take a company big enough to actually muscle their way in and say, if you want to work with these TVs that people want to buy, you have to do it directly with the TV and not with your own cable box. I don't think Ubuntu is going to be big enough to be that person anytime soon. So we may just have to wait for it to happen. Who knows? Maybe it'll come out. People love the Ubuntu TV and want to support it that way. I think it does. We've got the same selling benefit with our customization story on a TV as we do on the phone. And for the same reason that phone OEMs and carriers don't want to maintain their own version of Android, there's a cost to maintaining their own cable box and cable box software. So maybe we can have a good enough story for them that they're willing to switch over voluntarily instead of being forced. But that's all years from now. The Ubuntu TV is not currently being developed while we focus on phone and getting all of this stuff onto the desktop. So we'll have to wait and see.
All right, Mike, I think the next one is for you as well. From Constantine, question M. Hall, can you enlighten us to the script that was discussed for the likes of the Google plus Ubuntu app community and other Ubuntu.com links, i.e. about checking links as they were changed this week, I believe.
So there's a script in the archive that Stuart Langridge pointed me to. I haven't actually used it yet. It's called Link Checker, and I gather all it does is it'll just crawl a website like a search engine spider does, find all of the links and try and load them. And if it gets a 404 or maybe even a 500 on those, it'll report that to you so you can go in and fix it. The Stuart gave me this and a config for it to run against developer.ubuntu.com to try and fix any broken links that we have there. I'm not sure what exactly additional enlightenment you want from that. Like I said, I haven't actually run it yet, and it was really more of just a maintenance thing than anything particularly interesting. All right, the best asks, how much Android is in the Ubuntu for phone? So we've got an LXC container on the phone, which runs Android-specific things that we need to communicate with the hardware itself. There's not a whole lot there. We've replaced most of it. Like, we don't use Android's graphics server, Surface Flinger. We use Mirror. We don't use Audio Flinger. We use Pulse Audio. But there are still some things to interact directly with the modem and the GPS and that kind of stuff that still is very Android-specific. And so we do use that Android container for that. But there's not much left in there. There's not anything that you as a user are going to be interacting directly with. It's all abstracted for you. So that you won't notice any difference between running Ubuntu on an Android ARM device or running Ubuntu on an x86 device. Should all be the same.
Yeah, I've just posted the link. If you go to the porting guide on developer.ubuntu.com, you'll see a diagram essentially of what Mike was explaining. That the Android bits are all contained in this LXC container, and on top of that is all Ubuntu essentially.
Its eyes are closed.
All right, Constantine is asking, what will stop Ubuntu TV from turning into another CD-I phenomenon? And I'm not familiar with this set of letters, so I don't know what CD-I means.
I don't know. CD Interactive? I don't know. I'm guessing. I'm guessing as well. I'm not familiar with it either.
Right,
so if you can clarify.
Somebody enlighten us on what this means, and we'll come back to it.
All right. So the best is asking. There are some third-party APIs. For example, for WhatsApp, is it legal to use them? I guess the question is, it depends on which API. So, for example, if the APIs are open and if they're the trademark policies for writing apps or for using them are permissive enough to write the client, then it's perfectly legal to use them. In terms of WhatsApp itself, even though there are some APIs available, they have been known for taking down clients essentially that are not developed by WhatsApp or essentially now Facebook. So
yeah, so it depends on what you mean by legal. You're not going to get arrested for using them, but it does violate WhatsApp's usage policy, and they have, like David said, they've been blocking apps, third-party apps that use these libraries. So they don't like it when you use them, and if you start using it too much, they will notice and stop it. Which is unfortunate because there have been a number of third-party WhatsApp clients, including efforts to port it to other platforms like Sailfish and Ubuntu Touch. So we're going to have to wait for them to either create an open use API that anybody can use and write third-party clients for, like Telegram has done, or wait for them to make a native app of their own. I do plug Telegram every time this comes up because they do have an open API, they have open source clients, they're very friendly towards third-party implementations, and we have a very nice one already for the Ubuntu phone. that I use all the time. So convince people to use Telegram. It's remarkably easy. I've convinced Android and iOS users to switch to Telegram. That's your best bet until WhatsApp decides that they want to support us.
All right. So I'm just trying to scan for the next question. So Rara is saying, Meizu, are you kidding? And no, we're not. So Meizu is the next one.
I don't know what you mean by that.
No, me neither. But
if you were asking, is there an update on that? There is not currently, but hopefully we will in the very near future hear an actual release date for that. Because we are all excited for the Meizu phones. They look like some pretty spectacular phones.
Yeah. All right.
So Rara again asks, what do you think of KDE Plasma 5? So we actually had two of the Ubuntu developers on last week on our Q&A to talk about Plasma 5 and show off some of the things that they've been working on. You can go back and watch that at youtube.com/Ubuntu on air. We talked quite a bit about it there, but to summarize that, I think they're doing some great work. There's some really neat stuff that has landed, and I'm excited that Ubuntu is one of the first major distros to start shipping Plasma 5.
All right, and Konstantin just sent us a link to what CDI was. It was supposed to be an enhanced version of CD, of the regular CD standard, but with interactive features. I think the bottom line here was that it was a commercial failure, as the article says. And I think at this point it's not really fair to the comparison because, as we said before, Ubuntu TV as a product has not yet taken off. So it is something that we started developing, and then we found out that, or we decided that there were other priorities that we wanted to get on the market first. One of them being being the phone. So yeah, I think it's a bit unfair right now to do this comparison, especially because we don't have an actual product of Ubuntu TV.
See, Trump has asked, and he didn't start it with the word question in all caps, so maybe we just shouldn't answer this. But he asked, has Canonical thought about starting a GoFundMe to buy out Microsoft and then take over the world with Ubuntu machines? So the last crowdfunding campaign we did raised $12 million, which is, it was a record-setting campaign. Unfortunately, it didn't raise the $32 million that we were asking for. And I don't think we can go fund the hundreds of billions of dollars that would be necessary to buy out Microsoft. So we're taking the easy route, and we're just going to outcompete them. All right, Nanek asks, will there be something like KDE Connect for Ubuntu? And there is. It's called KDE Connect, and it's available on Kubuntu. I think what you mean is there something like KDE Connect for Unity, in which case I don't think there is yet. There isn't one that I know of anyway. But again, you can get KDE and Plasma 5 on Ubuntu, and then you can use KDE Connect itself to get all of that. You might even be able to mix and match. I don't know how much of KDE you would need to run to make KDE Connect work, but you might be able to run some of it on top of Unity to get that functionality. But it's probably not going to be as pretty as you would like it to be.
All right, so Konstantin is asking, what's the current philosophy about having a physical UDS? Tell us how else it could work as of yet. So right now, and we announced this a while ago, we decided to go for online events to replace the physical UDSs. But we've also always been open to the feedback of users. So essentially, we're finding out that online events have got a lower entry barrier in terms of participating. Yet from the feedback that we've gotten is that obviously they lack this human touch, essentially, or this social interaction face to face, which is quite important. And we've been trying to think of ways of bringing the spirit of UDS. This is something, or physical UDS, I should say. And this is something that is very much on our minds. One of the things that we've been discussing lately, and we've seen this actually already working, has been to, rather than having a centralized UDS event where everyone goes to, we're trying to go a bit like the distributed way that we're already going, or we already went with local teams. The idea being that that there are events already around the globe that are being organized by community members called UbuCons. There are several in the US, one in South America, one in Europe, and probably forgetting another couple. But we're trying to help community and to promote the organization of UbuCons around the globe. And this should continue being community organized events, but we're trying to support those communities who want to organize them, either with speakers or with organization help, with guidance, sorry, what was I going to say? Yes, with community donations, with organization, and with travel as well. So this is something that we're starting to see right now. We've already had a couple of UbuCons organized this year, and we know that there are at least 2 or 3 more in the works, and we're in contact with the organizers. So this is something that is pretty much in our minds for this cycle. The proliferation of UbuCons, which I think are a really cool thing to again see contributors in person. See your Ubuntu friends, and also learn about what's coming in Ubuntu, run hackathons, learn more about app development, learn more about other parts of Ubuntu, and have discussions about the Ubuntu project itself. So this is one of the things that we're looking into right now. But of course, we're open as usual to any other ideas that you guys might have.
So far we've run an UbuCon in Florida as part of FaucetCon. We just recently ran an UbuCon in California as part of Scale. And we have UbuCon LA being planned now by Jose down in Peru for later this year, and also an UbuCon at the Southeast Linux Fest in North Carolina in June. So we are putting a lot more effort into that, and if you can attend, and even better, if you can come and give a presentation to one of those UbuCons, that would definitely help spur them on.
Definitely, yeah. And there's another one as well coming up in Europe. There's the ubucon.de that's also being celebrated each year. But yeah, as Mike is saying, the best thing that you can do to help is, short of or helping with the organization, is just attending to those events, and we can assure you that they're going to be awesome, and they're going to be fun. Okay, next question. So, Chloe Wolfigal is asking, when will Ubuntu come pre-installed with kittens? Actually, I think, unfortunately, it's not pre-installed. But if you search the store for kittens or for cats, I think there's a LolCats app already in the store. So I guess the question is, it's not yet pre-installed, but yeah, it's working its way up to world domination too.
Yeah, if you like kittens, then you should go to Google and do a search for kittens, and you may find a couple of matching results for that.
Okay, so Rara is asking, if I write a QML app for Ubuntu, what are the chances of it running on Sailfish 2 with modifications? I guess the question is, and I'm not too familiar with the toolkit that Sailfish OS uses, but essentially, if you write an app that doesn't use any specific features of a given toolkit, be it Ubuntu or Sailfish OS, I'm guessing that it should work without further modifications. Now, if you use then the toolkit to make it look or feel more integrated to each one of the operating systems, then you'll definitely have to do modifications. But hopefully, they should be easy enough for you to work out.
Yeah, it's mostly going to depend on what the app does and how much of it relies on something platform specific. I know we've already had a couple of apps that work on both Ubuntu Touch and Sailfish with minor modifications. I don't remember which ones now, but I do remember seeing some. And it's possible to write more generic QML apps, but I think in order to make your app really nice and really interesting on a platform, you're going to need to do something specific to it. But if you separate it properly, you can have a lot of the same code being used on both. For example, not specifically to Sailfish OS, but we have an email client in the store called Deco, which is largely based on the Trojita project. So even though it's not, even though Trojita wasn't built for Ubuntu and using the Ubuntu toolkit, so much of the code was separated from the front end that they're able to reuse the vast majority of Trojita and just put a layer of Ubuntu interface, so the toolkit and specific things like Content Hub on there, and make it work that way. So if you're writing an app, then you want it to be portable across multiple platforms. That's the way to do it. Just keep your logic separate from your interface, and then you can provide different interfaces depending on your target platform. We've even had a couple of apps that were ported from the old Migo, which used Qt 4. So there's a lot of potential for porting and maintaining separate ports fairly easily, as long as they are a Qt QML environment. So Migo, Sailfish, even some BlackBerry, although I don't think I've seen any BlackBerry apps ported yet.
All right, so I think we've got 2 questions left, and I'd say as we're running out of time, we'll try to answer those 2 quickly. So there's one from Global Figure. Question: will there be an official Ubuntu map app? I saw a map icon for it. So there's two actual ones. One that's pre-installed on BQ phones, which is the Here Maps app, which is using the Nokia Here data. We've also got the OSM. Actually, I've forgotten the name of the app. Well, there's the OpenStreetMap app that you can install also from the store, and that one is also really nice. So yeah, there's already a couple of options regarding maps. And if you want to use Google Maps as well, there's a Google Maps web app that you can install again from the store.
Yeah, if the question is, are we going to build our own mapping solution, I'm going to say no, just because we don't have the resources in order to do that.
All right, so Nightmare is asking, and let's make it the last question. Does the Ubuntu community lack developers, in your opinion? rather than saying lacking, I'd say there's always place for more developers. I mean, we're seeing a lot of momentum in Ubuntu development, and more people writing apps for Ubuntu, or more people getting interested in writing apps for Ubuntu or porting apps. So there's always place. We're still away from other more established platforms, but looking at the stats or the growth from the store, seeing the interest in apps, and even for scopes, which is something really need to up developers. I'd say yes, there's place for more developers. We're seeing good we're seeing good growth though, but yeah, there's always place for more.
And we are seeing a shift in developers. So where traditionally Ubuntu has attracted platform developers and OS developers, just like Debian has, we're seeing more of a shift recently to people who are interested more in building things on top of Ubuntu rather than building things into Ubuntu itself. So app developers, scope developers, Snappy now for Internet of Things and some web services, and Juju Charms for web services. So what people are interested has changed, and we're changing along with it to try and make sure that we cater to those people. But like David said, there's always room for more. If anyone's interested in being an Ubuntu developer or developing on top of Ubuntu, I certainly don't want to dissuade anybody from getting involved in that.
Cool, and I think with that, and we will even answer another question from Konstantin, which is something we always do. We'd like to thank everybody for joining us on this Q&A. There's been quite a lot of interesting questions today, and it's always fun to see the things that people are asking and to see where the interest in Ubuntu is. So again, thanks a lot for taking the time for joining the Q&A, for joining the conversation. And see you next week at the same time, same channel, perhaps different people, but still the community team.
Before we go, just a reminder, you can watch this video again and any others that we've recorded on Ubuntu On Air on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Ubuntu On Air. You can follow us on Twitter at Ubuntu On Air, and you can follow the Google Calendar that we have up on ubuntuonair.com. So, Jose's happy now. We can wrap it up.
All right, then. Thanks, everyone, and bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone.
See you next week. All right.